Good morning, everybody. Apologies for the technical difficulties. We're now online. My name is Councillor Roy MacDonald, and I'll be chairing this morning's meeting of the Development Committee. We're not expecting a fire alarm today, so if it sounds, please leave it one of the doors either side of me. Use the stairs to leave the building. The toilets are in the foyer, just out the door to my right. And in the event a break is needed, we'll be having that about 11 a.m. Please can I remind members of the public they can't interact with the committee during any breaks. Can everyone please turn off their mobile phones or put them on silent? Today's items will be discussed by the committee, who sit in the front two rows opposite me, and we are given advice by the council officers who are sitting at either side of me up here. Can the officers up here please introduce themselves?
Good morning, my name is Jeff Lyne, I'm the Development Manager.
Good morning, my name is Claire Shopland, I'm Democratic Services Officer.
Hi, I'm Russell Williams, I'm Assistant Director for Planning, and I'm sat on this side today because I'm also presenting agenda item 8, after which I'll move to the other side.
Good morning, I'm Adam Folgenbridge, I'm the Democratic Services Governance Officer.
Good morning, Isabel McManus, Planning Officer.
Fiona Croxton, Solicitor to the Council.
Thank you. And to receive apologies, I've got apologies from Councillor Heinrich, Councillor Kaytoy, Councillor Jaytoy, and Councillor Varley. Are there any other apologies?
No, Chair, no, that's...
I have no substitutions, is that correct?
That's correct.
Can we go through the minutes of the Development Committee from Thursday the 24th of July? Does anybody have anything they would like to bring up? Councillor Brown.
Good morning, Chairman and members and those attending today. Yes, I got one amendment, which, well, at least I think it is an amendment on page 2, under the heading Local Member. I think 4th line down, it says Housing England. So before we get a call from the government, I think that should be Homes England.
Thank you. Any other corrections? Yeah, I think you can accept as minutes. Any items of urgent business?
Yes, I have one, Chair, which relates to authorisations from this committee. I have circulated a hard copy to members this morning, and I would propose that we deal with that as item 13 of the agenda.
Thank you, I've added it. Thank you. The order of business going to be as per agenda?
Yes, Chair.
Any declarations of interest, please? Councillor Holiday.
I must declare an interest in items 10 and 11. Thank you. I'll be abstaining. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other declarations of interest? No? Thank you. So we move on to item 8, which is Cromer PF 242341. Can I ask the officer to do the presentation?
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, as you know, this is the 3rd time we have reported this application to you. First time in February of this year, second time in June of this year, and now today. The good news is that we've received a fairly extensive suite of additional information since the last time, which has been assessed and has resulted in us reducing substantially the reasons we're recommending this application being refused. So the presentation today is going to have largely 3 parts. One, an update. Why is it here? What's changed? Secondly, a briefer version than previously of the description of what the proposal is. And thirdly, some conclusions that will focus on the highways element of this. The papers start on page 19, or this report starts on page 19. And the first thing to draw attention to is the fact the description, the proposal, has been amended from previously. Effectively, it has reduced the scope of what could go on the site and removed, by doing so, the areas that officers had concern about potential impact, for want of a better phrase, on the vitality and viability of Cromer Town Centre. So we're much more comfortable with the description as now proposed. And equally, the additional information has helped considerably. We've reviewed it all. We've concluded now that with that revised description, that we're comfortable in the particular circumstances of this proposal, that the uses set out are appropriate to this site in the context of local plan policies and in the context of available employment land within Cromer. And that is set out within your report. And that's probably the primary change here. With that comfort, I suppose, we've taken the view that the public advantage, public benefit of that point overrides a couple of the other areas of concern previously. And in addition, some of the information that has been provided is of greater depth and quality than before, and we're now comfortable that we have enough information that ecology, biodiversity net gain and flooding could no longer be justified as reasons for refusal. So that brings us back, as I'll come to at the end, to highways being effectively the outstanding issue here. But if we just switch for a quick reminder, I suspect all councillors have seen much of this before, but we will just go back to basics of this proposal. So that is the site. For those of you that know Cromer well, drive out the middle, up Hall Road, past the hall on the right, and then a bit further along, probably a 10-minute walk-ish, you come to this site tucked away back in the trees. There is some existing employment development off to the left as you look at that plan of the site, and this would add 5 new units placed between that development and the road. We'll just flick through some photo points quickly. Next one, please. So that's the site entranceway there. I'll come back to that in a bit more detail later on. Next one, that's looking up at the existing employment buildings. The new ones would be approximately where those bales are in the foreground. Next, please. That's sort of looking across the site. Don't worry, there's only 2 more of these. Next one, please. That's looking effectively from the footpath that sort of wanders its way towards Felbrig, I suppose, back towards the site, and then the main hall in the far left-hand corner of that. And then the final one shows the view down the driveway with Hall Road in the far distance there. All of those photographs have been presented at the last 2 committee meetings as well, as has the next drawing, which shows the layout of the 5 units. There, effectively a sort of courtyard type development, 2 on one side, 3 on the other side. And of those 5, we go back one, sorry, the applicant is comfortable with the principle that at least 1 would be occupied for the estate's own purposes, and at least 1 would be occupied by one of the existing employment units off to the left as we look at it as it is, which again provides officers with some degree of comfort and policy compliance. Next one, please. These are unchanged, effectively what the buildings would look like, and then the next one just sort of sets those in the context of the landscape. So the existing building is that block off on the left-hand side of both of those, and the new buildings are the ones, my word here, hidden behind the lighter green trees on the right-hand side. And the applicant has proposed
Thank you very much. We've got a supporting speaker, Mr. Rob. Would you like to come up to the... Oh, thank you. You got You got 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name's Colin Robb. I'm a councillor for Cromer Town Council, and I am here on behalf of the council to support the application. We've got 4 sets of reasons. The first is the project will benefit the economy of Cromer by, according to the economic statement, supporting between 30 and 41 direct jobs. A proportion of these new jobs will be businesses where businesses have plans to expand because of the availability of these units. These have been verified by local businesses who are potential occupants. Some of these are existing businesses that for various reasons need to move from other sites in Cromer. And by moving to a more rural site, they will potentially reduce traffic in the centre of Cromer. The second reason is there is clear demand for the units, with over 6 businesses that have already made inquiries about moving. The design of the units will focus on flexibility, meaning that they will be attractive to a wide variety of businesses. Thirdly, according to the sequential test statement, there are currently no alternative sites available for this type of development in Cromer. This would mean that without this development, businesses would need to move out of the area to find suitable sites, thus reducing job opportunities and the overall economy of Cromer. The final reason, according to government figures, around 62% of UK farmers are having to diversify alongside traditional farming. This means over half of England's farms have diversified. Cromer Home Farm has in the past diversified by providing very successful local tourism-based attractions like Amazona Zoo, annual concerts, football, golf, and pick your own strawberries. This application will add even more to support the local economy and is therefore enthusiastically supported by Cromer Town Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robb. Can we clarify? We got you down as a support and speaker,
Yeah,
but you said you were speaking on behalf of the town council. Which is it, please?
well, both. Oh, and well, on behalf of the Town Council.
So you are speaking on behalf of
Yeah,
the town. Thank you very
sorry.
much. Which ward member's going first? Okay,
Thank you.
but you got 5 minutes.
Okay. I believe this development does fall within the policy framework of EC3. This site's been used for a mix of agricultural and business units since 2003. In my view, the weight of balance falls to the use of this land as an extension of the existing business of letting units. It's even called an enterprise zone. Regarding point 3 of the latest update to the report, development in the undeveloped coast, which states there aren't policy compliant alternatives for businesses. There are a massive number of houses due to be built in our current local plan in the next few years. Where will people work if planning policy restricts business expansion? Weight must be added towards the permission of the extension of the home farm site, where there are already businesses operating and wishing to expand. We need local businesses in Cromer to survive and grow our rural areas where we already have significant challenges to employment. The Cromer Hall estate has been in existence since at least 1827 when the hall was built. For the estate to survive, it needs to diversify, as do many other farms, and needs to adapt into the future. Other models of such estates do exist, such as Holcombe Hall, where they've adapted and diversified and integrated into the local community to benefit them. This is a significant investment and is a potential risk that's being taken that will benefit the local community by housing local businesses and providing employment. So I'm very keen to see this go ahead. Looking at number four of the current report, impact of heritage assessments. The impact of potential harm to the land is outweighed by the economic and employment benefits this development will have. The piece of land has been used for agricultural equipment storage for many years. And the buildings are hidden in a dip in the landscape, so they will not be an eyesore to those around. And with all the trees that are there and the additional planting, they won't be visible from the hall, or likely much from the road even. And now I move on to points 5 and 6, highway safety, which is really where we're at now. Hall Road has recently had a speed limit restriction of 30 implemented, which I think significantly improves the safety of this road. The intention to widen the access and improve visibility displays will improve road safety at this junction. How we go about that is obviously for discussion, but it will make a big difference having that extra visibility display. The businesses that will occupy this area, they're not ones who would have constant traffic flow. They already exist within the town, and they will be frequenting this road anyway to get in and out to surrounding villages. So the actual impact of extra traffic will not be massive, in my opinion. In conclusion, I'm in support of this development, as in my opinion, the economic advantages outweigh the disadvantage. Our current policies struggle to support economic development, and I'm sure in future they will be reviewed to be more accommodating so as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Boyle. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chairman. So we're now only dealing with the highways aspects, with all matters related to biodiversity, landscape, purpose, need drainage, and heritage having been satisfied, or at least being capable of being satisfied by condition. The highways aspects here were not raised as a concern by members at previous development committee meetings, and obviously we've had 2 of those on this application, or where this application has been present. And if you recall, one councillor was able to point out their personal and professional experience of having used the access for coaches, among other uses, there having previously been a coach depot on this site. So, you know, I can also personally certainly speak to that experience, having used that access on a number of occasions and never having any concerns about safety upon egress. The 30-mile limit, let's try that again. 30-mile-an-hour limit has been introduced to ensure this road can continue to play a role in the town's economy more widely, and the access has been used for these purposes for many years now. Keeping in mind this is an extension of existing uses, or an infill, if you like. And in that time, no concerns have ever been brought to myself in either capacity as a local councillor, and that's over 16 years now. So literally not a sausage, no correspondence, no highways concerns, never been discussed anywhere really in terms of this access, but here in around these conditions. So presuming and hoping we're now moving to a point of approval, I would urge that we impose conditions sparingly here, so we don't overdo it, because these are, after all, mostly vehicles already using the local road network, and the applicant has offered quite a lot within land of their own control to improve the access further. And just to reiterate one point that my ward colleague made around the fact that actually these businesses aren't significant generators of traffic. There's existing use of that site, which includes a body repair shop, and they're recovering vehicles to that yard. I mentioned the coach depot, but it's had that usage for a significant time now, without any such issues. The area outside there is almost akin to a B road, actually, two lanes, and delineated with a marker down the middle. except that, you know, areas of Metton Road are tight, but it's never been a problem in terms of commercial access and usage realistically for a long period of time. I hope, given the conversations that we've had about this application at the previous committee, that will result in this being approved, having dealt with every other matter. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Adams. Officer Williams.
Thank you. If committee disagree with the recommendation for refusal, which is clearly your right, I will comment more at that point on possible conditions. I'm not going to go through that bit now, but I'll just make three other observations, some of which are slightly more technical. So just for the avoidance of doubt, whilst some might call this an enterprise zone, there is a sort of legal national definition of enterprise zones, and they're sort of formally designated nationally. It isn't on the national list. Doesn't make any difference to whether this is acceptable or not, but for the avoidance of doubt. Secondly, your officers are of the view that we're comfortable with the employment reasons, as I've already said, largely for related issues to what Councillor Boyle commented on, and Mr. Robb representing and supporting from the town council. But equally, your officers are not saying that because we take the view that this proposal is in accordance with policy EC3 of your existing local plan. We don't believe it is. The two units that relate to the estate and extension of the businesses to the side are, but the other three aren't. But we're still comfortable in the rounds of employment that it is acceptable, and bluntly, whether it should be refused for highway safety or not is a matter for you to determine. I don't really have any further comments to what's in the papers and what I displayed earlier.
Thank you. On that note, who would like to start us off? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. I understand the officer's report, but I actually do disagree with it. You know, we live in a rural area and roads are what they are, and I think it looks like a reasonable road to me with a 30-mile-an-hour limit. So I can't really see the issue with the application. And I also can't see anywhere where anybody's objected. Has there been any objections?
Not in relation to highway safety other than the county council, and we haven't had any comments from any members of the public on the application at all.
Yeah, I think that speaks volumes of no public have objected. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Fitzgerald.
I have to declare an interest, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is known to me and I have enjoyed their hospitality in the past. I have not discussed it, nevertheless, with the applicant.
Thank you. Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm persuaded to support this because of the support from the Town Council, the economic benefit and farming diversification elements. There are existing employment units there that are no doubt using the road, the path leading to the road. And it has been a coach park in the past. I do have some concerns about highways, but I think if reasonable adjustments could be made that are not burdensome to the applicant, I'd be very happy to support this application.
Thank you. Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Chair. Can we just clarify the economic benefits? I think it's 11 new jobs, is it, that are being created other than 41? Is that correct?
Yes, the number that are new is not the 41. I think one of the issues here is we have taken the view that there are existing businesses in Cromer who are struggling to find space to both stay and to expand. So it's not just the additional part here. It's actually securing existing jobs within the Cromer economy. So you could argue, yes, it secures 41, or yes, it grows 11. It's a bit of both here. There is, in my view, a lack of clear space for mainstream, what you might call industrial estate type businesses to be located in the Cromer area, and that has weighed heavily within our consideration.
Is that okay? Okay. Apologies. Councillor Fisher was next and I missed him out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll get over it, I'm sure. A question for Officer Williams, really. It does seem that the only thing that's holding this up is the highway officer's report. It looked to me, just from the visuals, that there is room to satisfy the highways, both visibility wise and highway width wise or road width wise. I just wonder why, if there's been discussion about this, can it be achieved, or how close to the highway needs can we get?
So I'll come back to my starting point that the County Council are recommending refusal. And then they've said, if you were minded to approve it, here are some conditions. So in relation to those two conditions, I have a lot of sympathy for the way Councillor Adams phrased it. So yes, they could be achieved in full, but in my personal view, that would involve more tree and hedgerow removal than I would recommend to you, because it would change what is effectively a rural agricultural based access into, and I'm possibly exaggerating here, but a traditional industrial estate, wide splay, wide curb. So I think there is a middle ground here where it could be improved somewhat, but I would be nervous and probably not recommending to you, if we get to that point, that we impose the county's conditions exactly as currently written. So improvements, yes, but not going to the full extent as suggested by the county, because I think you'd be taking out quite a lot of hedgerow for the visibility splay in particular, which I think would change the character of that road in a manner that would be inappropriate, probably.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so we can get very close then without making too much of a mess of the countryside, and that's what we need to come to. I think I shall be supporting this application.
Supporting. So you for refusal. Okay, thank you. Councillor Holiday, no. Councillor Netherby.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously the whole bulk of this is centering around highways. Could you please remind me how many additional traffic movements we're talking about here, please?
I'd have to spend a minute or two looking that one up, to be honest, Councillor. I can't remember whether the information is there. Having said that, the county have reached the view based on what it is. I would just also observe, which I think is something somebody else has referred to. So the original application description, and I'm exaggerating here a little bit, but would have enabled uses to be on that site which were actually seeking to attract members of the public to go to them. Okay. What is now proposed is a smaller suite where effectively it would be people working on the site that would be going to them rather than members of the public. So by implication, the numbers would have come down from what was first envisaged, and the people using it would be, appreciate this isn't the be all and end all of it, but experienced on that access rather than surprised by that access.
So Councillor Hankin.
Thank you, Chair. I think here again, we're faced with a situation where the local members have supported it and supported it with really good evidence. We have a situation where undoubtedly this application, if approved, will promote growth. And I think one of the things that we have to bear in mind as a development committee is in these marginal circumstances, with the objections that are access and from the county council in terms of access, which is already being used quite successfully. I cannot, other than support the local councillors and therefore recommend that it is approved after it's rejected, if you know what I mean. Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just looking at policy C3, just to dwell briefly on that, I know that has probably been settled, given the comments from Mr. Williams. There are two issues with EC3. One is scale, and the other is the potential detrimental effect. I think both of those issues have now been addressed positively by the applicant, and I'm pleased that this committee deferred at the previous committee to enable the applicant and our diligent planning officers to work together to resolve one or two issues which have now been addressed. I just want to query the definition of extension in policy C3, because I think there may be here a little bit of ambiguity. Does extension refer specifically to existing buildings being enlarged, or does extension to a business actually permit separate dwellings if it's for the same business within the same site? I'd just like to shoot that fox, if we may do that this morning.
And we've got many examples in our district of large businesses. I mean, we had one on our agenda last meeting, where there's a large business which are seeking to expand. Those are sort of the sorts of businesses that would fall within the remit of that policy. So you could think about Chris Malting, for example, had a large expansion of that facility that was assessed under policy EC3 as an extension to an existing business in the countryside. So what we said in the report is not really about sort of wider estate development per se as a landowner. It's about those individual businesses and those businesses expanding themselves, being located in the countryside. So there's a slight difference there in terms of how you interpret the policy. But I think, as we've said in the report, we've identified other material considerations that the committee might want to weigh that would tip the balance against refusal. So I don't think it's not determinative in terms of the way you should make a decision.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. So I read the objection from the highways officers as a conditional rejection, if you like, that in a perfect world, they wouldn't allow it. But we know that we have to work with site constraints. So I take that as an indication, not as an outright refusal, to be honest, as a conditional one, and that if the scheme can be worked out and can be mitigated by removal of some trees and landscaping compensating for that removal by trees being put elsewhere on the site, then I think that works, or it's capable of working. I certainly don't get the impression from my experience of travelling in that vicinity that it is a hazardous road. I think we've looked at other applications with similar entrances, and we've allowed them. So, and I also think that the applicant has made arrangements to widen the entrance. I think I've seen something I don't know if a plan has been submitted to, but I'm sure it can be, and I'm interested to hear what planning officer has to say if the recommendation from the officer is not accepted and we move to an approval. And on that basis, I'll wind up there and say that I'm happy to support, except I've got a slight concern with my portfolio hat on that Holt has got twice the allotted hectarage for business allocation in Cromer, with less expansion coming down the tracks in the new local plan. So when I see that the new local plan has got only 1.95 in Cromer and twice as much in Holt, I think there's a conversation I need to have with our planning policy manager on that. But I'm quite happy to support and take it from there.
Thank you. Councillor Holiday.
Thank you for allowing me to speak again. Officer Williams, could you just show us from that picture of the access how you would envisage it looking in your ideal world, where we don't quite go as far as highways, but we make it better? Thank you.
So I'm half reluctant to answer that question at this point rather than after the first vote on the substantive recommendation for refusal, but I will do, because let's just fudge the two together a little bit. And I'm clearly filling time now until the picture comes up. Okay, so that's probably the best picture. So if you took, and I am simplifying this somewhat, the access width point from the county council, literally, you would be removing that little white fence in the middle and taking out the first 3 or 4 meters of hedgerow back towards the tree in the centre of the picture, and taking out, or tarmacking, the whole of the grass strip that projects forward of the white strip. Personally, I think that would start to change the character of the place in a manner which would be unhelpful. And unless you as a committee were to take the view that it is essential to do that from a highways perspective, I'd be suggesting a little bit of tweaking the grass part, primarily so that a car that is turning right from coming out of Cromer, if it saw something coming down the other way, could at least be off the carriageway rather than sort of lurking halfway across the carriageway. So some alteration to that. That might involve, bluntly, the need to remove the first metre of hedge and move that white fence back a bit, because actually I think, having been on that site quite a bit in the last week, bizarrely, that little fence is quite a large part of the character of that area there. I think that bit can be done sensibly. My greater concern, if I'm honest, is the extent of hedge and tree pruning on the right-hand side there as you look at it. So as you're coming out of that, looking to the left, I think if you take the county's part literally, you would be taking out an extensive element of landscaping there. The applicant has, I think I mean this as a compliment, pruned it back somewhat in the last month or so, so it's a little bit better than it used to be. And personal view is I don't think it's terribly bad at the moment as it is, and I would hope we would have some discussions with the highway officers as to what would be a sensible middle ground there. But, and it does reflect what Councillor Adams said previously, if you are minded to approve this, I'd want to have a discussion on those 2 bits of condition that I put up there with those 2 numbers in, to come up with something that's more than current but less than what is shown there. We do need to remember the county as highway authority, and it's their responsibility, have recommended refusal on highway safety grounds, not on other grounds. We've endeavoured to show you enough information about that junction for you to take a view as to whether you agree or not.
Right, so I'm taking the mood in the room as nobody's going to propose that we reject. So in order to go forward with that, I think I'm going to have to propose that we go with the officers. Is that correct? Yeah, so I will propose, if anybody will second it, just to get it through, because I'm guessing that's the way it's going to go. I can second as well. Okay, so that's what I'll do. So you're now voting on whether you're going to go with the officer's recommendation to reject the proposal.
So for the sake of argument here, if you say for, you are wanting to refuse the application. If you say against, you're taking a different view than refusal.
Councillor Beattie,
Against.
Councillor Brown,
Having heard the planning officer's nursery rhyme on that, against.
Councillor Fisher,
Against.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett,
Against.
Councillor Hankins, Councillor Holiday,
Against.
Councillor MacDonald,
For.
Councillor Patterson,
Against.
Councillor Netherway, Councillor Vickers.
Against.
So that I have 9 against and 1 for.
Okay, so we got another proposal. Right, so somebody, you've got, right, councillor Patterson, oh, sorry, just a sec.
Well, shall I just kick off and then we'll come to councillor Patterson, who may propose this. So my understanding, reading the mood of the room again, broadly speaking, is there is likely to be a proposal, and the justification for that, from what everybody has said, is the economic positives of this outweighing any concerns, and on top of that, that you've taken the view in the circumstances here that you're comfortable effectively disagreeing with the County Council's recommendation on the highway safety point. Okay. In relation to conditions that I would recommend in relation to an approval, the majority of these flow out of the application documentation. Okay. So there's something around use conditions. So to the point that 2 of them will be related to what's happening on the site kind of already. There are a number of conditions around ecology, biodiversity net gain, tree protection, delivery of the landscape and proposed, pragmatic solutions on the access conditions and those recommended by the county, drainage, final check on materials, control over external lighting, and probably something about boundary treatment as well. So a fairly common suite, the vast majority of which flow directly from stuff within the applicant's report, delegating it to my post to determine at the point that we've reviewed the outstanding consultation responses that may come in.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'd like to propose this application for approval with the conditions as outlined by Officer Williams, and that's with the highways. That's a sort of halfway house between what highways have requested and what you and where we are now. So what you proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Netherway. Thank you. To go ahead with the bill. Thank you. Councillor Vickers.
Could I just ask Officer Williams a question? I mean, what we're voting on is what you suggested, a slight removal of that centre portion back a little bit with no other adjustments? Or is it something that you're going to decide later? I'd just like to know.
So a little bit between the two. So I'd like to ask somebody else to have a conversation with County Highways as to whether there is something in the middle, but I don't disagree with the phraseology that Councillor Patterson just used there. It's the middle ground bit that doesn't involve, let's just call it widespread wiping out of the hedgerows and trees in the area.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, But I mean, just a technical point, if the consultation with the public is expiring on the 9th of September and we give authority to our planners to approve today, presumably the decision notice wouldn't be issued until after the 9th of September. I just want to be sure that we're being compliant legally in that respect.
Correct. Equally, I wouldn't expect nothing to happen till that point. In this sort of scenario, there would then be a degree of dialogue, for the sake of argument, with the county and indeed with the applicant on a suite of conditions, so that Mr. Lyon or one of his colleagues shortly after the 9th could say, it's done, let's go with it thereafter. Clearly, if somebody objects, then we will have to consider the objection, but if they object to something you've already considered, then we won't need to take a different view. Equally, we don't have to come back to committee just because somebody objects. I think it's 99% certain. You might like this, you might not. You will never have to consider this for a fourth time.
Thank you for that clarification.
Is that everybody? Okay, can we go to the vote?
Councillor Beattie,
For.
Councillor Brown,
For.
Councillor Fisher,
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett, for, Councillor Hankins, Councillor Holiday, for, Councillor MacDonald,
For.
Councillor Patterson,
For.
Councillor Netherway, Councillor Vickers, for. That's unanimous.
So that's approved. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, everybody. Item 9 is Boredom PF 242705. Officer, if you could give the presentation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, members. So yeah, this is application reference PF 242705 at the Old Scarf Brothers Workshop, Church Road, Lower Bodham. So it's for the demolition of a workshop building, erection of a building for use as a live-work unit, recladding of retained storage building, demolition of other storage buildings, and the erection of a cart shed. So at the meeting on 27th of June 2025, the application was deferred to allow the applicant to provide a landscape impact assessment and further consideration to be given to the height, scale and massing of the proposed building, in particular the scale of the ridge line. So an amended plan has been submitted, reducing the ridge height of the building from approximately 9.8 metres to 8.2 metres. So that's a reduction of 1.6 metres. Additionally, a series of aerial photographs have been submitted, captured by a drone, to show how the existing building sits within the landscape from various viewpoints. So this is the wider site location plan. You can see it in relation to Bodham and High Kelling to the north. So yeah, this is the site location plan. So the site lies within the countryside in policy terms and is located on Church Road in Lower Bodham and historically operated as a haulage business with lorry and coach workshop. The site contains both disused buildings which are deteriorating and with overgrown vegetation. A woodland with mature trees bounds the site to the south and southwest, with agricultural fields to the north, southeast and south. So we've now got the existing and proposed site plan for members. So the red star denotes the building / partial buildings to be demolished, and then the yellow star denotes the buildings to be retained. So we've got an updated site plan here for members with the main building change in the ridge position and the colour of the shingle drive. So these are the existing elevations and floor plans. And here's the proposed north and south elevations. You can see as originally submitted and what members considered in the June committee, and then as amended. And then this is the proposed east and west elevations. So we've got as originally submitted, and then we've also got as amended. So we've then got the proposed floor plans. So members will note we've got originally submitted and as amended. So the roof space has been omitted. So we've got the proposed cart shed elevations here. And then the existing store. So we've now got some site photographs here. So this is approximately looking southeast towards the site. And then this is again looking into the site, looking south. And some further photographs. This is actually looking looking east, sorry. And then some further photographs of the buildings on site. And then this is looking east and looking west on Church Road. So we've now got some photos from the agent and drone footage for members. So this is the application site when viewed from the field opposite the site. And then these are some further photos from the drone footage from the agent when viewed from the field opposite the site. And here's some more viewed from within the site, looking north towards Church Road, and then the site viewed from the site looking west. And here's some further photos from the east and west along Church Road. So these are the main issues for consideration. And then overall, so the application is considered isolated, and although we cannot deliver a 5-year housing supply, paragraph 11D, the tilted balance of the NPPF applies. Officers note there are some benefits such as social, economic and environmental. However, it is considered that the benefits do not outweigh the harm to the aims of achieving sustainable patterns of development. The proposal is considered contrary to policies SS1, SS2, SS4, EN2 and EN4 of the core strategy. And then the recommendation is to refuse permission for the 2 reasons stated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have the ward member and parish councillor, Councillor Ringer, to speak, but he doesn't appear to be here and he's not put in a statement. I don't know if we can take into consideration that we know what he said in the past.
So clearly Councillor Ringer's comments last time round, which was 2 meetings ago, I think, are a matter of public record. They will have been minuted, and cutting it rather simply, he was supportive of the application, as was the parish council. And I think it would be reasonable to assume his position hasn't changed.
Thank you. So the supporting speaker is Mrs. Kemp. If you'd like to come up and take the microphone at the end, you have 3 minutes. We're also, well, Mrs. Kemp speaking, we'll be showing a drone footage from the development.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for letting me speak today and for allowing the drone footage to play in the background. As you can see from the video, the site sits in a natural dip and is surrounded by mature trees and has no public footpaths anywhere near it. From the road, it's barely visible, just a fleeting glimpse as you drive past, so the visual impact of the proposed building is genuinely minimal. I understand there were concerns the last time about the height and scale of the proposed building and about why it needed to be that size. So let me answer that clearly. We have 4 children, all of them still living at home, and this application is for a true live-work unit. It's designed to allow our family to live together and for us to run our business, BFR Equestrian and Country, from the same location. The space is simply what we need to live and work as a family. It's not oversized, it's practical. We've reduced the ridge height by 1.6 metres and the building now stands just 1.5 metres taller than the existing shed. This is the minimum height to support the structural integrity of the building. And the roof span is really important too, not for appearance, but because it's needed to fit the solar panels that will power the entire building off-grid. We have also removed 9 windows to further reduce the light impact concerns that were raised at the previous meeting, and especially over the adjacent woodland area. The proposal follows the same footprint and adopts the same simple roof line. So we're not introducing a new form, we're replacing it with something better, better built, more attractive and far more sustainable. And that's a big part of our plan, to be self-sufficient, to reduce our carbon footprint and to support the climate emergency declaration made by this council. We're proud to be proposing something forward-thinking, a way to reuse a brownfield land and support our rural business, raise our family and live sustainably. This isn't speculative housing, it's our home, it's our workplace, and hopefully it's our future. We've listened to your concerns and made some changes in response, and I hope the drone footage helps show just how modest and discreet this proposal really is. And I respectfully ask all of you to support us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Open to the committee. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. It's great to see the revisions in the mass of the building, the scale and height, and the revised glazing. I actually I don't agree with the officer's opinion, and yeah, I think the application should be supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vince.
Could I ask Officer McManus a technical question? You said that in the past it was used as a lorry and haulage site. In planning terms, could it be resurrected as such? I don't know if Mr. Lyons wants to answer that or Officer McManus.
I mean, theoretically, yes. I suppose if they can get the haulage license again, then there would be nothing to stop them applying to do that again. Whether that's likely is obviously a different matter, but it's still theoretically possible now.
So that rather knocks on the head the concern about, the residents using a car. I think the people of Bodham would rather see the occasional car than sort of have a lorries trundling up and down the road. And I think that, the existing building is rather shabby and unattractive, and what they proposed is sustainable and attractive. So I'd be very happy to support the application. And I realise that officers are constrained by planning laws, obviously the planning officer has done a very good job here, but I think the purpose of this committee is to see the bigger picture and the human stories there. Thank you.
Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Chair. What was the length of the original building compared to the proposed building? And could solar panels be put on the roofs of any of the other buildings? Thanks.
Just getting the facts and figures in terms of the measurements of the existing versus proposed. We'll come back to you as soon as we can on that.
And the second part of my question was, could solar panels be on any of the other roofs?
When you say put on any other buildings, I mean, can you be clear what you're?
We have a cart shed and a store as well.
There's an existing store. Actually, in terms of sort of measurements, if you go into appendix 1, which is a copy of the full committee report from last time. So if you go to, unfortunately, page numbering seems to have overlaid itself, but I think it's about page 79. To the top of there's some dimensions about the buildings on the site. So yeah, there's an existing store there. So some of the solar panels in theory could go onto that building, but clearly that wouldn't be enough of itself for the applicant to power the whole of their premises. So that wouldn't be enough for them just on the existing store building to power. I mean, clearly what you have before you is, I mean, the applicant obviously has dropped the ridge height of the building quite significantly, 1.6 meters, but obviously that does have some consequence that you've got an asymmetrical pitched roof, as you can see on the plans there, which slightly gives it a slightly squashed sort of appearance, if you for want of a better phrase, in terms of the roof. But clearly that's in response to committee's concerns about the height of the building. So that is a response to that request. From the officer perspective, clearly recognising the benefits of having solar panels is one side of the debate. The other is in terms of how would you want to break up that ridge so it's not a continuous ridge, because it is quite an unusual length of a building to have that kind of ridge line, a continuous ridge line on a building of that sort of type. I mean, you wouldn't expect that ridge line unless, say, for a terrace of 5 properties. That's more to what that's akin to in terms of the ridge line of that building, which is, say, why we've had some concerns. But it's a judgment call for you as a committee. You may say, actually, we welcome the drop in height, and that's enough to tip your concerns into an approval. That's ultimately your call as a committee, and I'll let you have that debate.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be pleased to see people living and working in one place. I do have a slight concern. Now, perhaps you could answer this. Are they expecting a lot of customers to call? Silence was a stern reply.
Well, I think from what the applicant said, that they're having a showroom there for people to come and visit the premises. So the expectation is that people will come to visit the site. I mean, we're not talking a huge supermarket here. We're talking about sort of a bespoke and a fairly niche business. So there won't be hundreds of cars on a daily basis, but clearly there will be customers coming and going to that site.
Okay, but I am old enough and have been around here long enough to remember Scarf Brothers, the hauliers that actually were based here. And they had absolutely huge articulated lorries going backwards and forwards. So I think the odd car coming in and out is actually a benefit. I realise obviously the lorries haven't been there for quite some time, but I'm sure residents of long standing will remember them and be quite pleased that it's being changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to confirm that, in fact, Councillor Ringer was more than pleased to see this development proposed. And also Councillor Varley, with his eco position and that hat on, was also very pleased to see this possible development. I did take the opportunity of driving from Bottom Village to go and have a look at this, to remind myself I too am old enough to have actually used as a customer Bob Scarf's Emporium, and remembering his lorries that disappeared in clouds of diesel, but managed to drive past it because it was hidden by trees, and I had to think to myself, well, I must have gone past the blessed thing. I think we would have, as a committee, it would have been beneficial to have had the landscape impact assessment, because although the drone footage did allow us to see that there's this continuous rising ground to the north up to the Holt Ridge, and falling ground to the south, which will no doubt allow this building to blend in more. The drone footage did flatten that out, I think, and it's quite remarkable that the bank to the north must be 4 or 5 meters high, I would have thought. So certainly I think with the dimension of the roof being reduced, and all other things considered, like the absolute hazard that the existing building is, and the hope from bottom that this thing will get built out, I would certainly go against the officer's recommendation in this case, and will vote accordingly.
Thank you, councillor Fisher. Mr. Ryan.
Yeah, I'm delighted to say I'm not old enough to remember it in that guise, but
Liar.
well, more to the point, I probably wasn't living in North Norfolk at the time, but I have been past the site deliberately since the last time, and I don't disagree with councillor Fisher's assessment that it is difficult to see this from further afield in that regard, and his observations about the fairly quick change of landscape levels around. Last time, and indeed this time, we recommended refusal for two reasons. One is the long one on page 73, which broadly speaking is development in the countryside. And number two is design and scale related issues. I think it would be fair to say that the discussion at the last meeting, you collectively took the view that you felt that the replacement of the existing building with its potential to be reused by a single house come live work unit would be acceptable. And you know, the vibe from what everybody has said today clearly doesn't take a different perspective on that issue. It was deferred primarily relating to concerns about design and scale, and as Mr. Lyon has already said, probably the dominant part of that being the 28-metre continuous ridge line at the one height. Now, the applicant has clearly, as has been both shown by officers and commented upon by the applicant, reduced that ridge line. It's still significantly above the existing ridge line, and it is still 28 metres, which, as Mr. Lyon has said, is kind of akin to 5 terraced houses as a row. So you have to take a view on the two issues, not one. You could decide it's fine in terms of principle of a house, and equally it's still not acceptable from a design perspective. You could decide it the other way around, although that would be probably a slightly strange position to take. My personal view is I would still be concerned about the design and that ridge line and the impact, I admit, from fairly close up, not from significant distance away. Equally, I would personally be fairly confident that you could redesign within the footprint of the site to have the same amount of floor space within a design that was appropriate. But it is your call, as Mr. Lyon has said. But I do think the two issues almost are separate. Principle, you probably almost decided last time. Design is more for today.
Second by the chair, councillor Patterson.
Thank you. Well, I was going to recommend for proposal, or I was going to suggest a proposal. We go to a vote. We're not at that yet. No.
Propose to refuse.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Are you going to propose rejection to get it?
I was going to propose to go with the officer recommendation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Then
yeah, and then
so. Yeah, well, shall I, are you, somebody going to second it? Okay.
Can we just be clear that obviously the officer recommendation is one of refusal?
Yes. You do what I did last time. So.
Yeah, but you'd be voting against No, I'm just being, so everyone's clear. So if you're wanting to approve this, you'd have to vote against the officer recommendation and the next vote. Yeah.
Yeah.
all right. Sorry, I'll retract that. I'll leave that to you, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Holiday.
Can I propose we refuse it? I think it's too long. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then, well, shall I second it then? Yeah, so I'll second it, and then we can have a vote. So you'll be voting if you're going with the officers to reject, and voting against if you don't want to reject it.
And for the avoidance of doubt, this is on the reasons set out on page 73 of your report.
Can we go to the vote, please?
Councillor Beatty,
Against.
councillor Brown,
Reluctantly against.
councillor Fisher,
Yes, against.
councillor Fitch-Tillett,
Against.
councillor Hankins, councillor Holiday,
For.
councillor MacDonald,
For.
councillor Patterson,
Against.
councillor Netherway, councillor Vickers.
Against.
8 and 2. So I have 8 against and 2 for.
So can I just explain what options you've got available to you now? Broadly speaking, there are 3, okay? And this is up to you. This is not me advocating you go for 1, 2 or 3. Number 1 would be you defer it for some reason, such as wanting to go on a site visit. And I'm not advocating anything. That's just an option you have before you. Number 2 is somebody proposes to refuse it for a lower number or different reasons than is set out before you that you've just voted down effectively. So let's just say just on design or just on principle. And number 3 is somebody proposes approving it. Okay. If somebody was to propose approving it and that's the next vote, then I would probably ask my team to my left to set out, like I did on the last one, what they might perceive as a sensible raft of conditions for this before you actually have the vote. Okay, so those are the 3 options before you.
Councillor Hankin and councillor Patterson. Thank you, sir. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. Can we hear the officers' conditions, please?
So obviously have the usual time limit. We'd have in accordance with approved plans. We'd want to secure the business use on the site because that's a fundamental part of a live work unit there. We'd clearly want to secure the solar panels because that's a key part of the design ethos and all the other environmental benefits that are being put forward by the applicants. And finally agreeing sort of other external materials and sort of hard and soft landscaping. Usual BNG condition that we require for mandatory BNG, and probably boundary treatment, external lighting, those sort of things that you'd expect to see in a rural development to make sure it's not going to have an adverse effect on the nocturnal character.
Well, thank you, Chair. Can I second councillor Hankins' proposal?
Thank you very much. Can we go to the vote? Do you want me to go through the vote?
And just for the avoidance of doubt, option 3 was to approve with conditions. Okay.
Could I
Sorry,
just
Councillor
officer
Vickers.
line a question, please? So these conditions will not involve an onerous redesign of the whole property. They're just things like solar panels, lighting, that kind of thing.
As a committee, you've not decided to defer on design grounds, so it's what's before you. What's been on the screens is what's.
Okay, thank you. I just.
Councillor Beatty,
For.
councillor Brown,
Against.
councillor Fisher,
For.
councillor Fitch-Tillett. For. councillor Hankins, councillor Holiday,
Against.
councillor MacDonald,
For.
councillor Patterson,
For.
councillor Netherway, councillor Vickers.
For.
That's 8 for and 2 against.
Congratulations, it's approved. I'm thinking we could take a break now before moving on to the next one. Say for till 11:05. Okay. 11:05. We'll restart again. Welcome back, everybody. We're now on item 10, which is Blakeney PM 250651. I think it's Officer Stock. You did a presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. So this is a reserve matters application following the grant of outline permission earlier this year for the erection of one south-build dwelling within the site. So the reserve matters that we're considering today are appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. So since the publication of the agenda, further comments have been received from the Parish Council and they expand upon their objections that they'd previously submitted. Ward Councillor, Councillor Holiday, had also expanded upon her concerns, and Conservation of Design have commented welcoming the changes to the elevations that were submitted during the course of the application, as well as suggesting a condition regarding Flint, but overall there no objection comment remains. So the main issues in relation to this application relate to character and appearance of the area, the impact that this would have on the within the Blakeney Conservation Area, the wider AONB or national landscape, and probably more pertinently is the impact on neighbouring properties, particularly number 63, which is the property there you can see to the north of the site. We go to the site plan that shows the location of the proposed dwelling, and yeah, you want to note the relationship with the property to the north, and the proximity to that. So if we go through the slides, the amenity impacts have been considered, and those are set out on pages 110 to 112 of the agenda. And the officer acknowledges that there would be impacts on that neighbouring property. However, for the reasons set out in the report, including BRE testing, so that's to do with daylight and sunlight impacts, the impacts haven't been considered to be adverse. So conflict with the core strategy policy EM4 and the Blakeney Neighbourhood Plan policies 6 and 8 doesn't arise. So the application is recommended for approval, subject to a number of conditions, which we'll get to. We'll just run through the photos of the site first. So that's the access track along the side of the recently redeveloped number 61 New Road Marigolds, which this site used to be the garden of. So that's that property there on the left is the redeveloped number 61 Marigolds. That's the site there that's been cleared, and that property that you can see there, the one with the solar panels, is number 63 New Road, which is sort of referred to in detail within the report. That's looking along there with the former host property. Along that boundary with number 63. And there you go, you see 63 there. And there's to note, there are a number of windows along that southern elevation of number 63, which face onto the application site. And you can see there that the boundary treatment currently is a hedge, and there's some wire in there as well. So as mentioned, it's recommended for approval, subject to a number of conditions. There's a condition in there that requires a 2 metre high close boarded fence boundary treatment between the application site and number 63 to address privacy concerns. And there's also, in relation to amenity, there is also conditions requiring obscure glazing and the removal of certain permitted development rights, again for privacy concerns and amenity concerns on that neighbouring property. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Town and parish speaker, Rosemary Tew. Come to the microphone at the end, please. Thank you. You got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Blakeney Parish Council objects to this application. There are multiple objections on the planning site, mainly concerned with the impact on 63 New Road. The proposed build would have a profound effect on that property. It is unneighbourly and would be severely detrimental, thus breaching EN4 of the core strategy. Additionally, it is not a self-build as described in the application. 63 New Road is a small, non-standard prefabricated bungalow, which has been home to the present occupants for over 40 years. It occupies a site which is about half a metre lower than the proposed dwelling. It is itself a low-level property, and the ground slopes down from the south to north, meaning the difference in height even more marked. The respective sizes of 63 New Road and the proposed bungalow mean that 63 New Road would be dwarfed by the domination of the new build. The living areas of 63 New Road, the kitchen, living room and dining room all face south. The proposed dwelling has windows which largely face north, so immediately overlooking number 63. The new dwelling is proposed to be 3 metres from the boundary. 63 New Road is just 2 metres from the boundary, given a total separation of 5.4 metres. That is not a reasonable gap. Again, EN4 applies in relation to scale and massing of the building. Because of the domination of the proposed new build, 63 New Road would be completely overshadowed, privacy would be compromised, their solar panels would be less effective, causing them to incur additional costs for heating. 63 New Road are also very concerned that building work would undermine their foundations. It is difficult to understand the officer's statement that human rights are deemed not to be sufficiently compromised so that refusal of the application would be appropriate. As the officer recognises, the maximum height of the building is intended to be 5.6 metres. The dwelling would be on land which is half a metre higher, so the impact would be huge. The building would dominate and the view of the ridge is particularly unappealing. The proposal does not meet the Blakeney Neighbourhood Plan because of its massing, height, scale and proximity to 63 New Road. It is unneighbourly, it reduces privacy on 63 New Road, it is overbearing and overshadowing. The officer's report recognises this and also that sunlight will be notably reduced. It seems unreasonable, therefore, to suggest that 63 New Road would not be adversely affected. Future occupancy of that property would undoubtedly be compromised. The Development Committee is asked to reject the application and also to rule that a 2-metre fence may not be installed under permitted development. If the committee is nonetheless minded to agree the proposal, then to order that the building be erected further to the south, allowing
Sorry,
wider
time's up.
separation.
Sorry, your 3 minutes are up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. This one.
So we got Mr. Randall? No? Objecting speaker? You got 3 minutes, sir.
Well, thanks for letting me speak. It's very important to me. My name is Andy Randall and I live on 63 New Road, which is immediately north of the plot in question. The plot has already got outline planning permission, so I accept there will be a building on the plot, but it's much too close to us. It's going to have a big effect. Got a few bits written down here. The report states that human rights implications have been considered, in particularly those pertaining to the right to respect for private and family life and the right to peaceful enjoyment of possessions. But Mr. Stock does not state how he has come to the conclusion that approval of the application is considered to be justified. The report states that amended plans have satisfactorily addressed the Conservation Officer's comments about the previously proposed unbroken ridgeline. This amendment comes at a cost of substantially increasing the height of the building by adding a gable end at its closest point to my home, which I don't think is very good. The report accepts that the development's impact on 63 New Road is a key consideration. It also states that the applicant has chosen to pursue the drilling in the location initially proposed. This is despite objections that were raised to it being too close to my home. As a result, the separation distance between the windows of our houses would be just 5.4 metres, against the 18 metres recommended in the North Norfolk Design Guide. Placing a new building so close to ours must be considered overbearing, contravening the provisions of the North Norfolk Design Guide. The report admits that we would have a 20% reduction in sunlight hours on our windows and a greater than 4% reduction in sunlight over the whole year. The reality is much worse, as the comparison has been made with a 2-metre fence, not with the existing situation. I put it to you that our loss of sunlight and daylight would be much worse than stated, and that this must be considered an adverse effect on our amenity. No mention has been made in the report of the effect of this loss of sunlight on our solar panels. Our house is a bungalow with very low eaves, and the solar panels are therefore not very high up. There will be significant loss of light and therefore electricity and amenity caused by the placement of the proposed building so close. This would contradict policy EN6 on minimising energy consumption. The report admits that there would be an overbearing and overshadowing impacts on the garden area. Any such impact would be considered to be adverse.
Your time's up, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to me. Oh.
We got a supporting speaker, Mr. Pointer. The microphone's on. You got 3 minutes.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you and the committee for your time today. My name is Jack Pointer, and this application is personal to me and also my family too. The plot is intended to provide a retirement home for my parents who have long planned to settle here in Blakeney. Blakeney is already a very special place for us. I was married in St Nicholas Church in the village, and my in-laws lived on the high street for many years. This isn't just another location to us. It's somewhere with real and lasting family ties. The site has been subject to careful work and close engagement with the case officer. We have taken on board the comments, made revisions, and shaped the design so that it sits comfortably in the setting. It always has been our aim to produce something sensitive and appropriate, and I believe the changes that we've made together demonstrate that. I also want to address the main concern that has been raised around the shading for the neighbouring property. We commissioned detailed shadow analysis and modelling which confirm our proposal will not materially impact the neighbouring bungalow. The reality is that regardless of the bungalow's design, the rear property is already in full shade because we have the legal right under permitted development rights to erect a boundary fence. To demonstrate this, we submitted further shading models showing the effect of the fence alone without the bungalow, and the outcome is the same. This makes clear that the proposed home itself, our proposal, is not the cause of issue. And very briefly touching on the levels, we've actually undertaken a full levels and topographical surveys for the sites. We are a lot lower than is perceived. And ultimately, again, by the shading analysis, we've demonstrated that that will not impact the solars on the bungalow. The case officer has looked at this application in detail and is recommending it for approval. We feel that this reflects the time and effort is gone into ensuring it's the right design in the right place. I'd also like to be open with the committee. The front property of the site was originally intended for my family, but due to unforeseen circumstances, we now have to sell it. Nevertheless, my parents still hope to move here and move into the rear property, fulfilling their retirement plans and keeping our connection in Blakeney strong. This is not a speculative development. We will not be leaving it empty, and we will be not banking it for another day. If approved, it will provide a permanent resident that strengthens the local community rather than contributing to second home ownership. And therefore, I respectfully ask that you support the officer's recommendation for approval. The scheme is modest and sensitive and above all personal.
Time's up, sir. Thank you. So, Councillor Holiday, the ward member, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. The relevant local plan policy here is EN4, supported by the North Norfolk Design Guide, and the relevant Blakeney Neighbourhood Plan policies are 7 and 8, improving the design of new and replacement homes and infill development respectively. This application drives a coach and horses through these policies, especially those within the Blakeney Neighbourhood Plan. Concerns are raised also about the issues with the human rights in terms of the right to respect private and family life and the right to peaceful enjoyment of possessions. Local Plan Policy EN4 states that proposals should have regard to the North Norfolk Design Guide and not have a significant detrimental effect on the residential amenity of nearby occupiers. This is reinforced by the Blakeney Neighbourhood Plan Policy 7, which requires that development reinforces distinctive local character in relation to height, scale, density, spacing and layout, and Policy 8, which states that infill must not be unneighbourly or reduce the privacy of adjoining properties. The North Norfolk Design Guide states that the distance between living room and bedroom windows should be 18 metres. Here we have 5.4 metres. That's less than a third of what is required. The bedroom windows on the application dwelling are not proposed as obscured glazing. And so where is the privacy for number 63? And is the layout and spacing between the building in conformity with Blakeney Neighbourhood Plan policies 7 and 8? Regarding the loss of daylight and sunlight, my understanding is that building research establishment guidelines cited here are just that, guidelines, but here they seem to be a determining factor. It would be interesting to have the chronology of daylight and sunlight testing clarified. Should it be carried out on the 21st of March or between March and September? I think we have summer data here. The revised elevations show a higher ridge line, especially for the kitchen. Was this later design used for the light assessment? Also, it has been raised that the site's topography means the proposed dwelling is higher than the existing. This will exacerbate any loss of light or privacy. Doesn't number 63 have a right to light under the Rights to Light Act from 1959 through long use through common law prescription? I understand the residents have been living in their house for 40 years. And how does this intersect with the BRE assessment? I understand the erection of the 2-metre fence on the northern boundary is within permitted development, but is a close board fence vernacular in the Blakeney Conservation Area. Even though, according to the officer's report, this development passes the Building Research Establishment assessment, it still reduces the amenity of nearby occupiers and is unneighbourly. It doesn't conform to Local Plan Policy EN4 and Blakeney Neighbourhood Plan Policies 7 and 8. I feel insufficient weight has been paid to this. The report states that the layout and scale of the proposal demonstrate that it would not adversely affect the amenity of neighbouring dwellings. I wonder what members think about this assessment. There is outline permission to build on this site, but could the building not be redesigned and repositioned as to have less adverse effect on its neighbour? In conclusion, I contend this application as it stands does not conform to Local Plan Policy EN4, Blakeney Neighbourhood Plan Policies 7 and 8, and raises issues in terms of human rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any of the officers, so she was asked, and Councillor Holiday asked several questions there. I wondered if you wanted to maybe answer some of them before we go to the members.
Yeah, I can pick up on a couple. In relation to levels, I know that's been mentioned. The outline permission conditioned a levels plan to be submitted, which it hasn't been at this stage. But before commencement of the works take place, a levels plan would have to be agreed. And I agree it should be in line with what the shadow analysis is showing as acceptable, i.e. they couldn't come in with the levels that are significantly higher and undermine the findings of the shadow analysis. But that is controlled by condition, and we can secure that. I acknowledge that there is an impact, and I've done that in my report on this this neighbour. But for the reasons that hopefully I've set out clearly within the report, I've not found those to be significantly adverse. In line with the guidance that BRE have provided. Hence how I've come to the recommendation that I have.
Before we go to the members, can I ask a question, please? So we encourage the villages and towns to do their own local plan. How much weight does that have when a development is contrary to items in their local plan over our plan?
Right, so the neighboured plans, once they're adopted, they're part of your development plan. So they have similar weights to the core strategy documents and the minerals and waste plan that we have covering our area. Now clearly the Blakeney neighbourhood plan was approved after the approval of the core strategy. So it's a newer document. And where there is conflict of policy between a neighbourhood plan and a previously adopted core strategy or local plan, it would be the neighbourhood plan that would take precedence in terms of the policy direction. So if there's something that's in the neighbourhood plan that's not in the local plan, then you should be paying heedance to what's said in the neighbourhood plan. Now, clearly, in this case, it's a balance that we're having to strike here. There's a principle for a development that's already been granted. So we're not talking about principle here, it's matters of detail. And as been said in the officer report, there's been lots of very careful consideration about what's the impact of the scheme on surrounding neighbours. Now, you may take different views as to whether you agree or disagree with our assessment as officers, but we have, as Mr. Stocker said, we've given quite a fair assessment in our view of the different sort of impacts and the different characteristics. And we've come to our recommendation based on assessment against policy. And that's so we don't think there's enough in here to justify a reason for refusal. There's the option to put a 2-metre high fence that we could do nothing about as a planning authority. Person could erect that fence tomorrow. We couldn't go in there and say they can't do that and with enforcement powers. So we have to sort of have recognition of what people can do on their land without needing planning permission. That's kind of part of what influences our recommendation to you as a committee. So yeah, obviously there's a lot to consider in terms of the different views that you've heard today, but I'll leave it at that point for you to start your debate.
Thank you for answering my question. Were you happy with that, Councillor Holiday, answer to yours?
I'd just be interested in this right to light, actually, from 1959, how that intersects with, for example, the shadow analysis and the other views that you put forward. Thank you.
Where's a lawyer when you need one to do that? So legal matters of.
Can I assist the committee in any way on this?
Councillor Brown.
On this specific point, and then if I can address later. The right to light, if you do have a cause of action under right to light, then it would be a civil matter. It wouldn't preclude the committee today making a decision to approve if they were minded to. It would then be for the neighbouring parties to take private legal action to apply for an injunction if the Right to Light Act applied. It isn't something that the committee and the planners need to take into account in their recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Mr. William.
Well, just for the avoidance of doubt, I do agree with what Councillor Brown has just said from an officer perspective. It does seem slightly odd, but the two things are entirely separate in that regard. So effectively, you shouldn't be considering that here. But that doesn't mean if you were to grant permission, it's gone away as an issue that could be relevant to the development of this site.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. I think Jeff covered off what I was going to ask, and it's this permitted development right of the 2 metre fence. And I understand what you're saying, that can go up to, and there's nothing can be done about that. That can happen tomorrow.
That's our understanding. Yeah.
So looking at the shading, most of the shading comes from the 2 metre fence, not the property. So I'm happy to propose the officer's recommendation.
Just to chip in, if we go to the shading plans, so these plans show the fence and the dwelling, and you can see at certain times of the year the impacts are obviously more significant. I think there is shading from the fence. There would be from a fence. Obviously, the dwelling being 5 meters tall, that would add to it, and you can see that it sticks above the sort of the 2 meter shading from the fence. But yes, there is an element of shading coming from the fence alone. The dwelling would, however, add to that.
Councillor Patterson, does that alter your? Okay, thank you. Councillor Fitch-Tillett, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like Councillor Patterson, I have extreme concerns about this 2 metre close boarded fence. Purely on the simple of, yes, the loss of light and the loss of privacy, but look at the loss of biodiversity. And I hope the applicant is in the room. I do hope he is listening, because the birds and the bees need somewhere to go, and I regret loss of these hedgerows right the way through our district.
Yeah, just to clarify, so if it's probably hard to see on this plan, but to the south of the proposed 2 metre boundary fence, there is a native hedgerow being planted along there within the application site, and there's a number of other replacement trees going in due to the loss that the development would occur, and further hedgerow planting, which is indicated by the different colours on that plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fitch-Tillett. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My comment was a declaration of interest, which I find that I know the owner of number 63 and should have realised early on.
Will that affect?
And I will not be commenting or voting.
So you're going to abstain? Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My understanding is that because the neighbourhood plan is the more recent document, where there is conflict with the core strategy, then the neighbourhood plan, because it is more recent in time, put it simply, is it takes precedence.
Sorry, which one does?
The neighbourhood plan would take precedence which is basically what Officer Lyon was saying. So that's my understanding. Presumably the levels plan, which we haven't received but will be conditioned to be received, will display or demonstrate the difference in height between 61 and 63 when 61 is built, and I don't know whether that is reflected on the slides that we have seen. I don't know what the difference in the roof level of 63 would be from the new property at 61. And perhaps an unfortunate choice of colouring for the boundary annotation on the plan, which is in green, which suggests that is vegetation, when in fact it's fencing, which leads me on to I do have a worry about the distance between the two dwellings being so compromised from 18 metres to 5.4. That's a significant difference. So I do want to dwell a little bit on boundaries. We need to be careful what we wish for in terms of whether a hedgerow could be could replace the fence along the rear boundary. Because it's my understanding that hedgerows are not caught in terms of how high they grow by permitted development regulations. So my worry is what is to stop the developer of this property when he's all done and dusted, taking down that fence and planting a nice laurel hedge along that rear boundary because it looks better as he looks out of the rear of the property. And that growing to a significant height above the 2 metre permitted development level. And that would certainly be a greater impact on the light enjoyed by number 63. So to what extent do we have capability as a planning authority to control that situation so that the fence, the reverse is normally our concern, that we want to, ensure, we want to condition that a hedge goes in, for EC2, 3 reasons, to maintain the character of the area. This is the opposite side of the coin, really. My concern would be to prevent that, to preserve the enjoyment of light into the property. And finally, I doubt if there is any case law under human rights legislation that deals with a planning issue such as this. So I'm giving the opportunity to an officer to demonstrate their knowledge in that respect here and now by saying, are they aware of any case law which would give a cause of action to the neighbour under human rights legislation? I have my doubt that there is, but I would welcome just confirmation of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
I can just pick up on a couple of comments there. I admit I don't know case law off the top of my head in that regard. So I'll leave it to one of my more superior colleagues to come back. In relation to the fence, the condition could require it to remain. I think that's how I've drafted it. So it would have to remain in place due to privacy issues. In terms of the hedge height, there is separate procedures in terms of high hedges. I think in this instance, though, given the proximity of the hedge to the proposed dwelling, it's unlikely that the applicants would let it get out of hand because it would compromise their own amenities. And we're looking at a mixed native species hedge rather than potentially like a Leylandii, which may grow more vigorously.
Yes, I think the regs apply more to coniferous, don't they, than deciduous, unless it's changed, unless I've missed it. So yeah, a mixed native hedge would bring it within the legislation that controls the height, so that an owner can be compelled to reduce it by legal action if necessary.
I must admit, I'm not an expert in high hedge legislation, but there are separate process for dealing with that.
I think Councillor Fitch-Tillett wants to bring something up, and then Councillor Vicker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a proud owner of a property that is surrounded by hedges, native, I can actually advise that hedgerow legislation between properties restricts them to 2 metres high.
Thank you. Councillor Vickers.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett has kindly answered my question because I wanted to know if outside the hedging legislation, we could set a condition that the hedge should never exceed the height of the fence.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. Yeah, we know it's not going to be a laurel because it's conditioned to be native, don't we? So we're covered off there. I'm just looking across the track of Samphire Close and look at the buildings there and how close they all are to each other. There's those 3 in a row are much closer to each other than what's being proposed in front of us. Yeah, but they are They aren't 18 metres apart, are they?
Thank you. Anybody else, or we're going to go to the vote? Any proposals? So is anybody going to propose accepting the recommendation? Councillor Patterson, I'm sorry, I apologise. Anybody going to second it? Councillor Hankin, you're going to second it? Okay, thank you. Go to the vote then, please.
Councillor Beattie,
For,
councillor Brown.
against,
I have an abstention from councillor Fisher. Councillor Fitch-Tillett,
Against?
councillor Hankins. I have an abstention from councillor Holiday. Councillor MacDonald,
For.
councillor Patterson,
For.
councillor Netherway, councillor Vickers. Five, four, five, three, two. I have 5 for, 3 against and 2 abstentions.
Permission's granted. Congratulations. Okay, we're on item 11, which is Blakeney PF 250522. The demolition of a 2-storey dwelling and erection of a replacement 2-storey dwelling, retrospective. Who's doing? Officer Lockhurst, please, presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, councillors. I'll just wait until it's loaded on. Thank you. I think we've got some issues with the PowerPoint. It's only showing it as it is at the moment, not full screen. So hopefully everyone can see it still. Okay, so this is a full application which seeks retrospective planning permission for the demolition of a 2-storey dwelling and erection of a replacement 2-storey dwelling. 8 Langham Road in Blakeney. So before we go through some of the slides, there is some site history on the site. There was an application back in 2023 for various works to the property under a full application, and a subsequent variation after that one in 2023. And then in 2024, we received another variation of conditions application for the same site. That again proposed various different works to the property. Following the continuation of works on the site, it transpired that the entire property had been demolished. resulting in unauthorised works which were not in accordance with the approved plans. So we have in front of us today a retrospective application. As I say, it is a full application. So I'll go through the plans that we have. As you can see, we've got the star showing where the site application is, block plan, and this is just an aerial view showing the dwelling as well. Here we have the elevations of what the property looked like before demolition. And these were the approved plans under the 2024 application. And these are the proposed plans with the current application. This drawing just identifies some of the changes that I've now proposed between the 2024 application and today's application. Existing floor plans and the proposed floor plans. Some views of the property. This one's looking to the side, to the rear elevation. Looking northwest. A better image of the east facing elevation, so to the rear. Looking north along Langham Road. And the front elevation of the site. This photo shows the window of the neighbouring property, which is at first floor, and the proximity of the development to the neighbouring properties as well. So the site is located within the Blakeney settlement boundary, and therefore the principle of development is considered acceptable. So the main considerations today is the design of the property and impact on residential amenity. The proposal has been considered within the report, and it is considered that the development would not have an impact on residential amenity and the design is acceptable, and therefore it has a recommendation of approval. Thank you.
Thank you. We could Parish Councillor Rosemary Through come to the mic again, please. You have 3 minutes once again.
Thank you, Chairman. Blakeney Parish Council is very concerned about this build and objects. The history of the site is set out in the officer's report. The original building was demolished without authority, and the present structure is being built with no planning permission. There is no question but that the next door property, number 6 Langham Road, is adversely affected to a considerable extent by the build. What has happened is that a boundary wall has been erected, and immediately behind it is the blank wall of the house facing north, and within about a metre at the closest point to number 6. Blakeney Parish Council does not accept the officer's assertion about loss of light to number 6. I visited that property at about midday on a very bright day. There are 3 south-facing windows. The downstairs ones, both bedrooms, look directly onto the boundary wall. I estimate the distance from the windows to the wall to be just over 1 metre. The windows are unobscured and the bedrooms have lost considerable light. Although the officer says that they would benefit from sunlight, they do not. Even on the very bright day of my visit, the rooms were dull. The upstairs window is a bathroom, again unobscured glass, looking directly onto the wall of the house at a very close distance. Previously, the view from that window was over the roof of number 8, looking towards property on the other side of the road. Now the view is of 2 air source heat pumps and very ugly drainage pipes. One criteria of planning is that buildings should not be unneighbourly. There has been a history of difficulty with the build for the residents of number 6. Whilst they were on holiday, their fence was removed and the boundary wall erected. They argue that it encroaches on their boundary. The wall is about 3 metres in height and should be included in the planning application. Blakeney Parish Council also takes issue with the officer's observations about the building size and height. The Blakeney Neighbourhood Plan expects development to be appropriate to local character and to ensure that massing, height and scale is appropriate to the plot. This is not. The new build has essentially moved the house further towards number 6 with detrimental effect. It is considerably larger than adjoining properties, perhaps by a metre, and its bulk dominates the landscape. The height is increased by the eaves. There is no question but that it is detrimental to the area, overbearing and unneighbourly, particularly to number 6. One criterion on planning is future occupancy. Future occupancy of number 6 will undoubtedly be prejudiced. The Development Committee is asked to support the Parish Council's objections. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Can I now have objecting speaker, Mr. Hartford?
That's one, that's from the road, you can see the comparison sign and stuff. I was, well, managed to see it, but it's
Sir, you need to start your 3 minutes if you're going to start talking.
can't see from there.
There's a screen here. There's a screen in front of you once you're up to the microphone.
Sorry. Anyway, my name's Edward Hackford and I live with my wife immediately opposite this property and I've lived there for 12 years. I've huge respect for the planning officers and their views, but on this occasion, I regret to say I think they've got it wrong and I'm sorry to disagree. The main objections to this are the overpowering bulk of the property, the ugliness of the vast featureless red brick wall, which I hope you could see in a moment, on the north side, and the way that it overwhelms the property. It's the one with the ugly pipes. There, you can see that. This is the existing property. You can see the pipes and this has gone up completely and basically has taken all the light and aspect from this bungalow on this side, and it's also taken, for that matter, the sunlight from their solar panels. You'll know that the previous property was demolished without consent. You'll know that the footprint of the new property is significantly different. It's wider, it's higher, and it's longer. In addition to that, there are now 6 floodlights on the front of the property, which is contrary to the Blakeney Council's dark skies policy. And the parking space is not as indicated. In fact, the document which is presented to you, which is, I think I'm just trying to find the reference to it, but it's the one where you can see the car parking, document PL10C. Is a complete nonsense, because since then the property walls have been built and there are now extensive red brick walls stretching across the parking area. So you could not possibly get 4 cars in there. It'd be very hard pressed to get 2 cars in there at the moment, because there are big gates now which open into the parking space. I'm trying to be brief and quick. I think that members will be aware this is really outrageous. It's more in the nature of a warehouse plonked in the middle of a neighbourhood where the surrounding properties are relatively small chalet bungalows or bungalows. I know of nobody in Blakeney, and I know a lot of people in Blakeney, who think that this is otherwise than a monstrous insertion in the neighbourhood. The last thing I'd want to say, Chairman, is that this is a retrospective application. It is the developer has always worked in this way in other properties in the village. He builds first, and then he puts in the retrospective application. And I hope, last sentence, Chairman, I hope that members will not be swayed in reaching your decision by the fact that the developer has presented the committee with a fait accompli.
Okay, time up, sir. Can I just ask, so the red lines that you sent me, that as brick wall, yeah?
Those red lines are brick walls,
Yeah,
which have
thank
been
you.
built since the plans were submitted to you.
That's what thought you were telling me. I just wanted to
That's
check.
right,
Thank you,
okay.
sir.
And you can see how it completely impairs the parking.
Go to local ward member, councillor Holiday.
Thank you. This application is for a replacement two-storey building. The previous building on the site was demolished without permission. A replacement two-storey building has been built in advance of planning's permission. And in addition, a more than 2-metre brick wall has been built along the north boundary without planning permission, and some front walls built as well, but they may be within height. That's okay. The relevant local plan policy here is EN4, supported by the North Norfolk Design Guide, and the relevant Blakeney Neighbourhood Plan Policy 7, improving the design of new and replacement homes. EN4 states that proposals should have regard to the North Norfolk Design Guide and not have a significant detrimental effect on the residential amenity of nearby occupiers. This is reinforced by Blakeney Neighbourhood Plan Policy 7, that requires that development reinforces distinctive local character in relation to height, scale, density, spacing and layout. This application also drives the coach and horses through these policies. The neighbouring property to the north is a chalet bungalow. 3 windows face the north elevation of 8 Langham Road, 2 bedrooms, 1 on the ground floor and 1 on the first, and a first floor bathroom. I understand the distance between the north elevation of the replacement dwelling and the south elevation of the chalet bungalow is 2.4 metres. The North Norfolk Design Guide states that the distance between blank walls and bedroom windows should be 8.5 metres. Here we have just over a quarter of that separation. The neighbours' windows are looking onto a blank brick wall just 2.4 metres away. Regarding the loss of light, in addition to the proximity of the replacement dwelling, its mass is greater than its predecessor, its eaves are higher and the footprint bigger, especially to the north, possibly by about half a metre, where a partial 1-storey extension has been replaced by a full 2-storey extension. Both have decreased light to the chalet bungalow, particularly from the south. I understand that there has been more than 20% loss of light to the neighbours' 3 south-facing windows. According to the BRE's guidelines on the amount of diffuse daylight reaching a window, a reduction of more than 20% is considered adverse. Much has been made of this point in the previous application, but doesn't seem to have been taken account into the current application. There is more overlooking of the neighbour's garden from the replacement dwelling, as the first floor windows on the rear elevation have a wider angle of sight into the neighbour's garden, therefore reducing the neighbour's privacy. There are 2 air source heat pumps installed on the north elevation of the replacement dwelling, directly opposite the neighbour's south-facing windows. I can't see anywhere that the noise impact has been assessed and whether these units are within the decibel threshold. Given the separation of only 2.5 metres, it is likely they will interfere with the peaceful enjoyment of the neighbour's home. The 6 floodlights in the front of the property raise concerns in terms of light pollution in a dark skies area and implication with EN2. The office report seems to underplay the adverse impacts on the neighbour's amenity. And so I'm asking you whether this application complies with EN4 and Blakeney Neighbourhood Plan Policy 7 in these regards. I do understand a previous planning application is a material planning consideration, but does this outweigh the amenity issues? Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Can I ask about the rules for the air source heat pumps? Because it's not just the noise. I've got an air source heat pump, and the blast that comes out there is like the Arctic North. How close can they be with that air source heat pump to the neighbouring property, please?
I mean, in terms of the scheme and these, what we believe are air source heat pumps, the case officer has asked the applicant to confirm what they are, because they suddenly appeared.
Yeah.
And they weren't in the original in the planning application that's before us. So we have asked for information about those. The likelihood is they would likely require permission given their height on the wall. And we would, in any event, normally get advice from environmental health as to whether there are any sort of noise or amenity concerns that would ensue from those air source heat pumps.
It's not just the noise, it's the icy blast that comes out. I've got one. You can come and look at mine if you want. The air that comes out is absolutely Arctic. And when I got mine, it had to be quite a distance away from anybody. But, okay, thank you. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to suggest, as the nature of this building and its retrospective nature, I think the committee would benefit with deferring this and having a site visit. I really do. I know it's we don't like site visits, but I think in this case we really ought to consider one.
I'll second that proposal,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I support that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, thank everybody. Councillor Brown.
Yes, I'm just going to say, actually, Councillor Fisher sort of stole my thunder on it. That I think there are so many design features that are on this property, partly due to its serial retrospective applications, that I think the committee would benefit from a site visit. So I think I'd better keep my counsel close to my chest at this stage until we deal with that issue.
So can I just chip in? I'm saying this slightly tongue in cheek because this will all happen after I depart North Norfolk District Council, but the officer view on this one unusually is not to try and talk you out of Councillor Fisher's view. I can follow the logic of going for a site visit for this particular one. If ultimately you were to refuse it, you know, one of the issues for the council is that then naturally leads towards enforcement action because it's already there. So taking a particularly careful approach wouldn't be a bad thing in this instance. And my second and final point is personally, if you're going to go on a site visit, I'd probably move towards that vote relatively quickly. You don't need a great debate, and to misquote Councillor Brown somewhat, you know, the less you put your position down too firmly, the better, probably in that regard as well. And the body language around the room, as it was suggested, was relatively amenable to Councillor Fisher's suggestion.
So I assume that it was proposed by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Brown that we go to a deferment for visit. Is that what the vote will be?
Effectively, yes.
Okay, we will vote on that, please. Thank you.
Councillor Beattie.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Fisher. Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
For.
Councillor Hankins. I have an abstention from Councillor Holiday. Councillor MacDonald.
For.
Councillor Patterson.
For.
Councillor Netherway. Councillor Vickers.
For.
So we have 9 for with 1 abstention.
So let's go on to a site visit.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you.
Chairman, now,
Councillor Beckett.
I don't know if it's appropriate or not for me to just ask for some clarification about this case. I know we're going to go on a site visit, but everybody's talking about it as if it's begun without planning permission. But my understanding was that it was a 2024 planning application. Was that approved?
Yes, so there was a 2024 application, which was a variation. So it just sought an amendment to the original approval. It didn't grant permission for the demolition of the property and the replacement.
Thank you very much.
It's slightly complicated in the fact that it would be a householder application to do works on your property, but that doesn't envisage full demolition and rebuild. And it's a different application type for demolition and rebuild. So that's why we've gone back in with that request for the application.
It would be helpful to me to see how the current house differs significantly from the extended and refurbished house as got the 2024 permission going on with this case.
And obviously we can make sure when we bring it back to committee, we have all that information to hand to name them.
Thank you. So that's deferred till the next available date. And we move on to item 12, Development Committee Process Report.
Thank you. Chair, I won't take long on this. Kind of 12 months ago, you agreed basically a call-in form. When you agreed that, I promised that we'd have a kind of annual review as to how's it going. Effectively, that's what this report is. So the call-in form process has been in place for 12 months. It still leaves the fundamental issue as to whether something comes to committee bluntly, either with me or with the relevant ward councillor or councillors. Our view as officers is it has helped with transparency and consistency in that regard, and with the exception of some minor tweaks, which are set out here, and they are minor, we would advocate you conclude we should continue as is. The two caveats to that from my perspective are clearly, floating in the background here is the national scheme of delegation, and you debated that at length at some point, which will change the rule book by whatever means in due course. And clearly in each case, I or Mr. Lyon so far has sort of looked at what councillors have come up with and have gone back occasionally to say, could you clarify a little bit? And that dialogue has always been pragmatic and constructive and resulted in an agreed position. So personally, half of you have filled one of these in, and to the best of my knowledge, it's going fine. End of observation.
Thank you.
Yeah, just picking up on the point of what's coming down the track from government. As we all know, they're trying to bring in planning reforms, some of it good, some of it not so good. So perhaps, I don't know whether members would agree with me that maybe a footnote should be put on the form that this is subject to any further planning reforms, in particular if the government introduced the national scheme of delegation, then the form will need to be modified. I don't know whether it needs to be done at this stage or whether we leave it as being.
So good idea from my perspective, and I think we can just tweak the recommendation to include that. So to reframe what Councillor Brown has said slightly, what I wouldn't want to do is, I'll pick on Councillor Fisher for sake of argument here. Councillor Fisher fills in something and something in Wells is going to committee, and then all of a sudden the government changed the rules and that thing no longer can go to committee. But if we've explained that is an outside bet within a footnote, it at least makes it transparent. So I think that would be a helpful addition that we could add. So you can do that vote by a show of hands rather than by recorded votes kind of thing.
Show of hands, please.
And I'm assuming those hands are in favour because we didn't do that vote.
Seven. Everybody apart from Councillor Holiday. Are you against, Councillor Holiday?
Sorry?
Are you against? I didn't see your hand up.
No, I was.
Oh, your hand was up, sorry.
I was distracted.
So we'll do the urgent business. You can.
So I will just cover this very briefly. So as I'm sure you are aware, most of the decisions you reach effectively authorise me to reach the final decision via saying, the assistant director to approve. I won't be here in 10 days' time, and there is almost certainly going to be a gap before there is a new assistant director. And as we're on live stream, the council is committed to appointing a new person, so there will be somebody. What I don't want, therefore, is all those decisions which you've made to date that aren't actually finalised before I depart being then impossible to finalise because nobody fulfils my post. So having talked it through with the monitoring officer, we think a simple minute here that effectively says, in the scenario of a vacancy in the assistant director of planning post, the director, i.e. my line manager, can take on those roles, still within exactly the same parameters the committee have set, and equally that individual, Mr. Hems in this case, could choose to authorise somebody else, let's just say Mr. Lyon, to exercise that on his behalf. So from my perspective, this is a straightforward business continuity suggestion rather than anything more fundamental. I'm comfortable with it. Ms Jordan is comfortable with it. We will need to make sure all the dots and crosses are done behind the scenes, but kind of we need your authority to do this.
Do we, oh, councillor Brown.
Yeah, just in paperwork terms, I mean, this obviously is meant to bridge the gap between the current assistant director and the appointment of the new one. Do we have to do something when the new assistant director is appointed to remove this interim arrangement, or can we let this stand? And does the constitution take care of the successor having the authority?
So broadly, this is written in a manner where it only clicks in if there is a vacancy. So as soon as there is an assistant director, it falls away. Hypothetically, it would then be in place if there's another vacancy in the future. So constitutionally, it's okay effectively in that regard.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
Yeah, it's fairly clear from the recommendation. It says that during any period when the council was without an assistant director for planning, any authorisation for committee, etc., during any period, that's the relevant thing. So job done as far as I'm concerned.
Can we do on a show of hands? And yeah, can we do a vote on a show of hands if nobody? Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Absolutely unanimous. On a similar subject, I believe the portfolio holder, Councillor Brown, would like to talk about something.
Yeah, well, I'll take it at this stage, Mr. Chairman, rather than sort of at after the appeals agenda item, if you like. But we may wish to.
It seemed a link.
We may wish to turn the stream off.
So
for
we'll leave it till later then if you want.
Thanks.
Yeah, we'll leave it till later. So we're on appeals, I believe. There's a performance, sorry. Performance, item 15.
So yeah, just a quick update on performance. So set out the performance for the period of July this year. So I mean, performance is good, still ahead of the national target. So nothing necessarily concerning. Obviously, the major performance, we've had one decision go out of time, but actually that situation may change and we may have to redo our performance figures at a point in time. But yeah, there's nothing worrying me in our figures, so I'm still happy to take any questions on performance, but yeah, pretty much as you were.
Any questions?
I think as is custom and practice, Mr. Chairman, it's just to say thank you from me as the portfolio holder for the performance of the officers.
Well done. We move on to item 16, appeals. Thank you.
So, yeah, I mean, the list seems to grow and grow with appeals, but I mean, the inspectorate has been quite busy, notably busy of late. So we've had a couple of decisions that you'll see on pages 138 and 139. I mean, as you see, most of those decisions have been dismissed. We've had one tree decision which was allowed. We don't get many tree appeals. And one case that was before this committee was allowed as well for a pizza restaurant in Sheringham. So the inspector disagreed with our concerns about proliferation of hot food takeaways within sort of the primary shopping area, and didn't have sort of concerns about amenity impacts. So yeah, the inspectors overruled your decision and granted planning permission with conditions on that one. But I don't think there's anything particularly worrying in terms of the outcome of that decision. Clearly, other hot food operators may be looking at that, thinking, okay, well, here's my chance now to open a premises somewhere. But I think the inspector's sort of conclusions were sort of fairly balanced in my view. He sort of considered the evidence and didn't feel it was at the 30% limit of the policy, but he felt actually, given there's been changes in the use classes order, it made it quite hard to rely on the full wording of the policy. So So yeah, that's the key one that's been allowed. We're happy to take any questions on others, if members so wish.
Councillor Hankin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I note that the planning team have been nominated for an award, or 1 of 10. Has that award been made?
Councillor Hankins is clearly more observant on this than the planning team is. Neither Mr. Lyon or I are quite sure what you're referring to, councillor.
There was a minute in the in one of the publications to say that the planning team have been nominated 1 of 10 throughout the UK for an award. That's all I know. So that's the question I'm asking. So you obviously are unaware of this.
I'm just aware we are still on the recording. So as part of my swan song, I'm delighted, but I'm going to find out what that is because I'm not sure at this precise moment in time. I will draw attention before Councillor Brown gets the chance to that we were sort of nominated as a platinum authority at some point in the last 6 to 12 months and one of only 4 district councils in England. That's the sort of the pièce de résistance of what I'm aware of in terms of stuff. But I look forward to, if you could dig out, councillor, before I depart, where that came from. I will check it and enlighten people separately.
I will do that, Mr. Chairman.
I
Thank you.
feel Councillor Brown may have mentioned the Platinum Award once or twice. Yes, yeah. So, you want, sorry, Councillor Brown. I thought it was something in it. Yeah, okay, so we can close the meeting, please. 20 past.